Shalom. I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ha, Racha, Chodash, Ma'amah. Double honors to the elder apostles of GMS and the elders. Double honors to my elder, a heroine by Yasharalah of the Lions Den Camp, located here in Jacksonville, Florida. Salutations to the sincere Akim, pushing his truth and sincerity around the four corners of this earth. I'm Nakar Harab Ban Yasharalah, coming out of the Lions Den Camp of Yasharalah here in Jacksonville, Florida. And today I'll be coming out with a lesson. It's an impromptu. So without further ado, I'm gonna just get right into it. Of course, I'll be coming out of Psalms 83, and I'm gonna start at the top, verse 1. So this is Psalms 83, verse 1. It says, "Keep not thou silence, O Yahweh. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yahweh." Now, of course, you know this is a Psalm of David. This was was David complaining or making or beseeching Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai for the uprising and the tumult of his enemies that were coming against him. Verse 2 in Salakia. Verse 1, and he's asking the Lord to keep not silence. He's asking Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai to do something about it. Verse 2, for lo, thine enemies, Salakia, make a tumult. You know, a tumult is a riotous noise, an uproar. And they that hate me have lifted up their head. So David was saying that my enemies make a tumult, a riotous noise, a commotion, you know, as it were. And they that hate me have lifted up their head, meaning that David was saying that these other nations and his enemies have come up against him. He was asking Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai to not be silent. He was asking the Heavenly Father to not be still, to move, to protect him. But this is also this is also applicable to the fact that these Esau and his constituents, i.e. the other nations, have come against the children of Israel. Just like right now, this whole CDBC, Central Digital Bank Currency, whatever. That's a precursor to the MOTB to be put in place to be the new monetary system, and this is ultimately to clamp down on the children of Israel, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American. This is really what this is for, to clamp down one last time Esau and his constituents, i.e. these other nations, because these other nations have come to the realization that when it is spearheaded, whatever they're doing in the earth, when it is spearheaded by Jake, it is somehow successful. So the new system that Esau is setting up is to enslave Jake and ultimately the whole earth with this tomfoolery, i.e. this new world order that he's coming up. But Esau and these other nations have taken counsel against the hidden ones, the children of Israel. But let's continue. Verse 3, it says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. See, these other nations, Esau and these other nations have taken crafty counsel. Every policy, every statute, every law, every regulation and or whatever that they come up with in the UN, the United Nations, the House of Congress, the Senate, or whatever, is ultimately geared against who? Jacob. So again, this is verse 3. They have taken crafty counsel against the people, and consulted against thy hidden ones, i.e. the children of Israel, which are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and the speckled bird, i.e. the Israelites that have been scattered among these other nations that look like these other nations. These heathen nations have taken a crafty counsel against us, along with Esau. We are the hidden ones that these nations have consulted, these heathen nations, Esau included, have consulted against. We are those hidden ones we are those people that these nations have taken crafty counsel against. And the fact that the MOTB is being pushed is a crafty counsel against the hidden ones, against Yasharalah. But Esau is going to try and just go ahead and group in the whole world as well. That's where you get your hour of temptation from. But let's continue. Again, verse 3. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. So these nations have come together: Esau, Moab, Elam, Ishmael, the Hagarenes, Ham, or Ham, whichever word you want to use, which means, burnt or dark. But these other nations have come together to come against the children of Israel. Why do you think the MOTB is being pushed? Because Esau wants what? He wants his despised birthright back, because he despised it. That's why he sold it to begin with. So he never ever cared for it. It was of no importance to him. So Esau and these other nations have taken counsel against us. They have said to themselves, come and let us cut our people off from being a nation. That's why you have Esau with all the philosophies, the beliefs, the doctrines, and paying literally millions to almost billions of dollars to keep the fact that we're Israelites hidden from us. This is that counsel, that crafty counsel against the children of Israel. These nations have come together to try and cut us off from being a nation, to keep us from knowing who we are as a people and whose we are, which we belong to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai, and to keep the name of Israel out of remembrance in the earth, so that we will not know, because they understand that when Yasharalah realizes the truth, they start to call on Yahweh. And like the brother Kanak, or i.e. the Bishop Kanak of this camp says, furniture starts to move. Things start to happen. The Lord starts to intervene. And the Lord shows that he cares nothing for these other nations when he intervenes to save his children, his people, the Israelites, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American. So these other nations have come together to try and cut us off from being a nation, so that our name will be no more in the earth, so that our name will be no more in remembrance. That's why you have all these new names now: Chinese, Arab, African, Indian, Japanese, and so forth and so forth. That's them making a pathetic effort and attempt to cut the name of Israel from off the earth and keep us in the dark. Verse 5. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. These other nations are in array against the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American. That's why Jake can't go nowhere on the four corners of the earth and not be pretty much called a nigger, or not experience prejudice against him, because these nations have come together. They have consulted together with one consent. They are all in agreement, and they are confederate against who? The so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American. That's why when you go in their whack-ass stores, and I'm going to say it just like that, when you go in their little stupid so-and-so stores, they're always looking at you crazy, but they're set up in your neighborhood. But they want to look at you crazy. But they want to make money, but they want to look at you crazy. See, these nations have come together against the children of Israel. That's why every nation on the planet is going to go into slavery under the children of Israel, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American. The Lord gonna have Israel to kick their behinds for a time. And after that behind kicking is over, then, only then, will they get some form of living among the children of Israel. When I say among the children of Israel, I mean in the earth. Because there ain't gonna be no heathens living in the kingdom. There'll be slaves. That's about it. But the only nation that's going to be totally and utterly wiped out is the nation of Edom, the tabernacles of Edom. So let's continue. And it names the nations that are confederate against who? The children of Israel. Verse 6, it says the tabernacles of Edom, so-called white people, and the Ishmaelites, the so-called Arabs, and of Moab, the so-called Chinese, and Hagarenes, these various African nations, or i.e., these various nations of Ham, Gabal, and Ammon, the Japanese, Amalek, Esau again, the Philistines, Ham, the Hamites, and the inhabitants of Salakia. Ashur also is joined with them. They have hold pinned the children of Lot, Salah. So these other nations have come against us. They have come together in one consent to keep us in a low state, to keep us in a downtrodden state. That's why you have Ishmael set up in the neighborhood on every corner in the corner stores. He pretend like he cool, but he really ain't. That's why you have the weave stores set up in Jake neighborhood. That's Moab, selling the fake hair, the orangutan booty hair that the women of our nation put in their head and wonder why they're going bald and having problems growing their hair. Ultimately, it's the curses of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. But these other nations have come against the children of Israel, and this last we'll say tumult and or uprising is a last ditch effort for Esau and his constituents to come against the children of Israel. So these other nations and Esau and these other nations are confederate against Israel. They don't have the best interests. It's like the best interest of Yasharalah in their eyes. They're coming up with all kind of policies. They're coming up with all kind of manner of rules and regulations to keep us down, i.e. the RFID chip. It's ultimately going to be a test upon the whole earth, and it's an end time prophecy, to signify the end of Esau's rulership. But nonetheless, Esau's doing this so that he can enslave Israel. But on top of that, he's going to throw in these other nations, but that won't succeed. So again, these other nations are against us. They have always been against us, and they still are against us. And it's going to take Yahweh Shai to intervene for these other nations to change their mind, to know who they effing with, and to know that we ain't nobody to be played with because we have a father and he ain't playing by his children. So these other nations have taken crafty counsel against us, and they continue to do it. But one day it will come to an end. It will stop. And with that, Shalom.